The impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Bentley. It is vampires. There's a host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead. And what of the true god? He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Welcome once again to Paranormal UK Radio, a flagship show broadcasting on Paranormal UK Radio Network. And I'm your host, Irene and Mark, and with me tonight again is Mark Johnson.
Hello. How are you?
I'm all right. I've got a slight headache. And for those listeners that know I have a puppy bulldog, she's going crazy in the background. Would shut her in the kitchen, but she'd absolutely destroy it. And she's making rather a lot of noise behind me. Or she was just a moment ago. She's gone quiet now.
That's what you get for having a puppy.
Oh, I know, but it's worth it. Worth every cent about her. She's worth everything.
She is a cutie pie, little bulldog.
Yeah, she is. She is, but she's a nightmare at times as well. Well, you never know.
Like I said,
she might improve. As she gets older, she's going to get slower. She's going to get more sluggish, more stubborn. So those days will come.
Yep.
But at the moment,
yes, they will.
She's crazy. Yeah, I know.
Oh, good Lord.
Anyway, right, Mark, is there anything you want to say that you've been up to lately?
Just doing a lot of interesting things here in Colorado. Yesterday, I attended a small conference, a talk with two very different types of experiencers. One woman was a near-death experiencer, and another woman was an ET experiencer. And yet, there was a lot of similarities between their experiences. You think they're totally different phenomenon, but yet there really is a spiritual level of connection with both types of phenomena, and there's a lot of synchronicities and similarities. So that was a really interesting talk, and I'm speaking with both of them about possibly coming on as guests on the radio show. So that should be something interesting for us moving forward.
Nice.
But
we'll
I'm also
have to get them booked in.
Yep. We'll have to get that on the calendar.
So, right, here we go then. We've got a brilliant guest tonight. Would you like to introduce her, Mark?
Yes, our guest tonight is Shel Kaoke Dion. And Shel has a very unique story. And I'm just going to, without any further preamble, we're just going to take it right to Shel. Shel, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, I had heard your
Hi, Irene.
I had heard your story, and I found it really fascinating. And at first glance, there's parts of the story, I will admit, sound a little unbelievable. But then yet, when I heard you explain it further, you totally sucked me in. So I was wondering if you could start off by talking to people about your personal experiences with Bigfoot and other types of creatures when you were growing up, and how that followed you into adulthood.
Well, it started when my parents brought us to the country. I was only a 4-year-old, and my brother was 3 years younger than I, and my dad had a house built down here, and it was just on the edge of this little village. And, there was a graveyard at the dead-end street, and beyond that, some woods, and then behind their house, they had a creek, and that creek ran 3 miles to the south, where my uncle consequently had a farm, and that creek ran right through it and along the wooded area. And that would be the basis of where everything begins for me, encounters. And, it was very slow when I was a child, just different things happening. We would come to the dinner table, and, this will be in my book at greater detail, but I would come to the dinner table, and, tell my parents these fascinating things that happened outside that we heard or, experienced. And they were just, oh, you heard a field rat or it was a raccoon. And I'm going, no, it sounds like a lion at the zoo, and so they were just not really connecting dots until some damage started happening to their house. And then they started thinking that maybe people were trying to break in, and then they thought we had a Tom peeper. And it just, over the years, it just kept progressing to the point that you were in fear to be outside at night.
Now,
By that time,
I'm sorry, just real quick, where was this and what part of the country?
Here in Illinois, central Illinois.
Okay.
Now, as I got to be my teenage years, it really did just start ramping up. And I've told, other stories about, some scary things, really scary things that would happen to us. And we didn't know what it was. And I went on to, around 18, start becoming more, adult, having a job, going to college. And I got a giant dog, and I took that dog everywhere with me. I had a Russian wolfhound. I was terrified to come home late at night and get out of the car by myself and walk into the house. So I had that dog with me everywhere I went. And I got married, moved on, and it's everywhere we seemed to move, we moved by water and woods. I guess it's just a part of my personality because that's how I grew up. And it's like the problem followed us. And my mom would still be having problems of the same nature here, and I would be 20 miles away calling her in the same night going, I've got this going on outside. One of the first things that happened, my son was an 8-year-old, and he was in the living room doing his homework, and I was cooking. It was that time of year where it starts to get dark out early, and he come running into the kitchen yelling that there was a man looking through the window that had flashlights for eyes, and orange flashlights at that. And when my husband at the time came home and we went out, looked around where the kid was terrified. And where he was standing, somebody looking in that window would have to be 8-9 feet tall. So I turned around and did what my parents did to me at the same age. I said to my son, you must have seen car reflection on the windows or something, because nobody's that tall. And it didn't occur to me until 10 years later when I had to go through a divorce and come back home and take care of my dying father that, oh my God, I did to my own kids what my parents did to me. I didn't believe them. And so now here I am in my later 30s, and I'm taking care of my dad. I'm helping my mom. And my dad would, hit the panic button for me to come down to that end of the house. And he'd say, there's faces up at the top of the window looking down at me. Can't you cover that up with curtains or something, And he was not on medications or anything that would make him loopy. My dad has faculties about him. He just had a bad heart. And so it started ramping up again, all the stuff. And then when my dad passed away, I decided, you know what? I can't leave my mom and leave her here alone, go somewhere else, lay my head on a pillow, and know that she's safe at night. They were repairing their roof like every 5 years, putting on a new roof because the roof was getting damaged and sunken in spots, and just crazy things happening all the time. And always somebody trying to get into the doors, always somebody trying to get into a window. And so I just, threw myself out in the night and said, I'm going to figure this out one way or another. My brother lives in another state. I'm the oldest. I'm the responsible one to take care of mom and dad now, and I've got to do this.
Shel?
So I did.
Shel, when you said people were always trying to get into doors and windows, could you explain that a little bit more? Where something was rattling or trying to bang in on the windows or doors?
Yeah, you would actually have a doorknob that you would hear it wiggling and see it across the room wiggling, and you would just freeze in your place and, look at each other going, okay, it's 12 at night. Who's trying to get in the front door, And so one of us would go and look out and not see anybody, or we would just miss, the screen door just shut, like we just missed them. And here you are flipping on floodlights and everything else, because we did everything. We installed floodlights and everything, trying to figure this out with no luck. I mean, my brother and I got together and we did all kinds of crazy things. We used to paint ourselves completely black from eyelids all the way to the tips of our toes and hide outside trying to just trip these, I'll quote as people, up and figure them out. Who are they and why are they so fascinated at my mom and dad's house, Over the years, I have just stories upon stories of things that would happen. And so just, it gets to that point where you get all full of yourself and anger over this, and you just fly out that door and you go, who are you and what do you want, and that would happen. My mom would get very mad. She'd be out there, just come on in. The door is right open right now. Just walk yourself in. What is it you want, and things like that. They were really driving us mad. So I just started putting myself out there in the night and just sit out there in the open in a lawn chair and just wait. And the pebbles would start coming at me and, everything else. And I was like, this is just like it was when I was a teenager. Only now, here I am in my late 30s at that time, and it's the same game. It's the same routine. So I'm thinking it can't be the same person 20 years later. It couldn't be.
So you had experiences of this ever since you were a child, all through your childhood, your teenage years, and now when you're you're 30 years old. Is this when you first you seem to accept it? So was this when you started to research?
Yes, this is when I started to research. Just over a decade ago, I started to research it and just dive in as to what is this. And I didn't go it alone. Sometimes it would get so scary, I would call my son, and he would come, and so we would experience it together. And so our first real sightings of Bigfoot, I was, in the presence with my son and his girlfriend. And to this day, they have memories that they'll probably never forget, because they really did test us and put you through some scary moments as to, okay, are you worth our interactions? And then once they decide that no matter what they do, you're just going to stand your ground, then okay, it's all right. It's all cool. We're not going to scare you no more. Now we want to interact with you. It's just this weird thing that they have about testing. Yeah. And I've taught many people on how to deal with this and coexist with them and how to go about it, because I made so many mistakes that I could shave off years for other people. It took me forever to get to the point where I could communicate with them and interact with them. And so I learned things. And one of the things I learned was, don't be gifting them. Don't be giving them food. Don't be treating them. That was a major no-no. There's lots of reasons I could go into about that. But one of the biggest reasons is they're going to look at you like, okay, as an example, Irene, I haven't known you very long, and say that after tomorrow, I sent you a gift basket. Thank you for doing the show, and some fruit. And you would be thankful for that. You would like that. But then, maybe next week I send you another one. And then a few days later, I send you flowers. You're going to start thinking, what does she want from me?
Not only that, but I'm going to start.
Are you going to start thinking I'm weird?
No, I'm going to start thinking, well, I'm going to start expecting it every week. And then one week when it doesn't come, then I'm going to start wondering why, and I'm going to get upset.
There's a lots of ways this can go. You can see that is not a way to go. And the way it first happened with me was an accident. I was pouring down rain. I had backed up my four-wheel drive to the door, and it was early spring, and it was just flooding everywhere. And so it was pouring down rain. We carry in the groceries, and I forgot one of those half carton of Pepsi soda in the back of the truck and locked it, went in the house, and, continued on with the evening. The next day we cooked dinner, and I wanted a Pepsi. And I said to my mom, I go, where's the pop that I bought? And she says, well, maybe we left it in the car. And I went out to the car to find that, okay, well, the hatch no longer worked, and there was a carton there and a lot of cans that were squished, and the openings turned to the side to be opened, and all of it just left in the back end of my car. Well, they thought then every time they wanted the Pepsi crave, they would go to the car and they would do whatever means it took to get into it. Just like a bear would get into a car and tear it apart for food. Well, that happened to my new US SUV. It was only a couple years old, and at this point, it's sitting out on the farm. I couldn't use it. The hatch, you drive down the road, it just keeps going up and down after being fixed many times. Steel.
So your insurance doesn't, your insurance doesn't offer Bigfoot coverage?
That's right. They didn't believe me, and I said, hey, Sasquatch is tearing up my car. They just didn't believe me. No, I didn't try that, actually, but that's just the point I'm making is, though, you do something and then they're going to expect. And the expectation can turn into something you don't really foresee what's coming, because you cannot predict Sasquatch, no matter what you do. I can't do it. I can't predict what they're going to do when they're going to do it. So there's so many reasons to be careful with food. I've heard of horror stories where people would start giving the food, and then if they stopped, then horrible things would happen. Property getting torn up, kind of like mine did. And then there's the other aspect. If you're visiting them, that's what a lot of people do these days. Ever since Finding Bigfoot come out, people just flood the woods, and they're tying plastic to trees with little treats in it just to see, if something gets taken. And, they do all these little gifting plates and like little shrines out in the woods. And you're going into their home, their territory. That sets up a whole different scenario there. So the habituation is, if you got them at your home and you start feeding them, you get the expectation going, you may have a mess. And then if you're out there in the woods and you're bringing and stuff, maybe you're not bringing enough and they're not friendly, or maybe you're bringing and they're looking at the fact that you're trying to bribe them. They're smart. They're very smart. So that bribery, they're not going to give you respect, So there's lots of reasons that you can get involved in that whole get the thing.
It's not only that, it's like any wild animal you shouldn't feed, because if they start to rely on you, they won't go looking for their own food.
Right, and you're putting things into their body that
might not be good
they're
for
not
them.
used to. And so what if their little one ate it and consequently catches some disease and got sick that we don't even know about? And then the next time you go out there thinking, oh, armful of stuff, I'm going to go give my forest friends some treats, and they're waiting to ambush you because their child died. There's just so many reasons.
Well, you don't know, do you? Yeah, but you wouldn't do it with a lion or something like that, would you? You wouldn't start putting treats out with it. You'd keep that wild animal as adjusted to its own possible. And to
I think
if you keep feed, like I said, okay, so it's different with these zoos and things like that where they can't go out.
It's controlled. Yeah, it's under control. It's in a control situation.
Yeah. But it's not, but like you say, you may give it something that's not good for it, that it can't digest. Like we should never give chocolate to dogs. You don't know what damage you're doing.
Right, exactly. You don't. And what if it's got peanuts and they're allergic, or you don't know. There's so many ifs. And the ifs is what...
These out, the people that are putting it out in the woods and things, they're using it as bait, aren't they?
Well, yes, and that's a whole other situation where I will go out and see where other researchers are coming and using peanut butter jars, and then you see a raccoon dead on the ground with its head stuck in the peanut butter jar. And, it's just ignorance is bliss out there. And one thing I do believe is that if these people really ever got a look at Sasquatch, they wouldn't be going out there gifting and doing all this stuff. They would be terrified because some of them are just absolute giants, but their faces, even though they do have the human element, they're very intimidating looking. I will tell you that, and I've been seeing them for years and taking pictures of them constantly, and yet I still find them unappealing to look at, Some can look better than others, but if you had to go face to face with this 15-foot tall, 1,200-pound man, are you going to go, "Oh, here's your peanut butter. You want to be my friend?" No. But there are, once you have...
With you, Shel, you do it with respect. You do it for research. You take the photographs of somebody like a wildlife photographer or somebody like that. You don't do it for the reasons that a lot of other people do it.
Right.
To try and get that body, to try and,
No, I'm totally against that. I really get off on learning their culture and studying them, especially seeing the interactions with their children. Like, I have pictures of a baby when it was first born, and now it's beyond its toddler ages, and I'm still getting photos of it, and calculating how fast it grew compared to what we do as human. That's more my edge. And if I do gift them because I am working with them or being allowed to work with them, I'm likely to leave, they'll use laundry bags and carry stuff in that, and they'll bring it back with a big hole in the bottom, all nasty smelling, and the rope will be gone, and they kind of leave it in the same spot there I gifted it to them like a year earlier, and I'll kind of get the message, okay, you would like another one. If you're going to gift, that's more along the lines of what I would do. Brushes, I cannot keep a brush in my car. So I figured out, well, they really like those brushes, and of course they're hairy, they need them. Okay, brushes if they want, and I don't make like a gifting area or something. I'll just take a brush out, brush my hair, and leave it on the log or something, and I'll leave it in that kind of a way. I don't get intimate with some of them the way people are doing. There's places where I research at one level, and then there's places where I go and I know them by name and they know me by name. So it's, at different places I research at different levels. Some places I don't even want to really know them, and I just want to stay back and use a long-range telescope and just get my photographs and see them moving in their own habitat and see them with other creatures that started coming on the plate. Like with the wolf creatures, they tend to get along with the wolf creature. It's not to be mistaken with the dogman. Now, the dogman, that's a whole nother entity. The wolf creature has the legs, body of a Sasquatch, but it has a dog head. And they look just like a wolf. They're black, typically. I have seen some females that are lighter in color, and it's really a strange thing to look at and hard to wrap your head around. But catching that and catching the interactions of them and stuff, watching the children play with other ones that seem to be the same size of a different species is very, very interesting stuff to me. So, that's more my game.
Let me ask you this, and I am someone who, while I believe most things, anybody who knows the research and things I talk about, there's not much I don't believe in, and yet I still have, if I'm going to struggle with something, it's this whole dogman or wolf-like creatures. upright walking wolf creatures. Now, you can look at going back to European folklore going back hundreds of years, and let's face it, wolfmen, werewolves, big in Europe, and yet it seems like it's a relatively, at least from what I understand, a relatively new phenomenon that's coming out now. People talked about Bigfoot for years, and the Native American cultures talk about Bigfoots going back hundreds of years. Whites really started to become big in the 1950s. And yet, it seems within the last 5 years, I'm hearing talk of Dogman from a lot of different cryptid researchers. And my first reaction is, what? Where in the hell did this come from?
Mine too. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it, but I was seeing the prints. And I still didn't believe it. The prints weren't good enough for me, just like back in the day when it took me visualizing a Sasquatch, not looking at their footprints, not seeing their hair and their shadows, but actually visualizing one before I would believe it. I am a really hard sell. And so I started seeing those footprints back 5 years ago. It wasn't until 4 years ago that I actually visualized the Dogman. Now, last year, I brought in many photographs of Dogman. I have many photographs of the wolf creature, and I would be happy to oblige you to that stuff. You can look till your heart's content. Because that's what I do. That's why I do it.
Yeah. Shel, the two of us were chatting last night for some time on here, just talking about your experiences and a couple of my experiences. And there was a time when we were talking about the portals and how they can move from one place to another via portals. Now, who's to say that, okay, the legend must have started somewhere, surely. The folklore there's always something at the end of a folklore to start it off in the beginning. Who's to know that these things from Europe have not crossed via portals to America?
Well, yeah. And, I have another thought, too. I was thinking, too, about the conversation we had and, how all these fairy tales that we've heard from, our childhood up, and now these things are coming to a reality. But if you don't just look at those things, if you look at other histories throughout mankind, history always seems to repeat itself. Is history starting to come around again? And some of these same things that were not true to our generation, but generations much older really believed in them, and that's how they become stories and folklores. Now they're becoming our reality and our truth again, like history is repeating itself or something. My mind kind of was just really overdrive after we were done talking. There's some sneaky mystery to it all.
Well, I was just going to say, I just had an epiphany right now, and Irene, you'll relate to this because I've mentioned this on some prior.
I know what you're going to say.
Well, you are an extrasensor, so of course you know what I'm going to say. I had recently learned about something known as the Schumann resonance. Are you familiar with that?
Asking me?
Yes.
No. What are you referring to exactly?
The Schumann resonance is referencing the Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Earth has a magnetic field generated by the Earth's spinning iron core. It protects us from the harmful radiation from the sun. But for years, the Schumann resonance, the frequency of the planet, resonated at 7.8 hertz, on an electromagnetic scale. The human mind, of course, also has electromagnetic field because there is electricity within our brains. And
we are electric.
Mm-hmm. And at 7.8 hertz is usually the mind when we're in an alpha state or dreamlike state, meditative state, calm. Mm-hmm. For some unexplained reason, and they don't know why, since 2014, the Schumann resonance, the magnetic field of the Earth, has been increasing in frequency. And it is, as of this last week or so, it has spiked all the way up to 36 hertz.
Oh, wow. That's a big gap.
It's a 500% gap. And if 5 times the strength out of all the time that they've been measuring it, and they feel that the magnetic field has been steady for possibly hundreds or thousands of years, and yet just since 2014, we are seeing the hertz climb and spike at incredible levels. Now, what has also been happening in these last few years? UFO activity has been going off the scale for the last 3 years or so. And in these 3 years is when I started hearing more and more of these stories of these dogmen or other types of cryptid beings. There's more paranormal encounters that people are experiencing. And so I'm wondering if there's a correlation here with the natural frequency of the planet increasing, and maybe if these creatures and entities, if they do use portals for crossing between dimensions or realities or worlds, that maybe
well, I know that the way they work with us sometimes, and this is kind of going to go off topic for a minute, but it's going to come back around. If you understand ultrasound and how ultrasound works, many times I'll either be in the field or I'll be at home, and people that work with me, even my students will be talking about this beeping and tone and stuff that they would hear in their head, and you'll be running around the room looking for a cell phone and going or something making this noise, and you can't figure it out, and then you realize that you're in the middle of an encounter. And so they'll use that and locate you with this ultrasound, these beeps and this tones, and you're hearing it. And so then I also realized that once you are around these beings so much, I noticed, and so I started talking to other people about, that are in this constant habituation state where I'm at, like they're always around, that you would feel some level of anxiety when they were around, whether you were outside, knew they were there, or you walked out and you have an encounter and they're there, but you would feel it physically. Like, we have our sixth sense, and yes, your hair stands on end and everything else when something's, focused in on you, shooting the energy at you. Well, it seems to be the same with being in contact with these beings. It's like something about yourself raises to where you start feeling and hearing not only ultrasound but infrasound at the same level. We, on the documentary we're working on, took out EVPs and everything else, and we were shooting live, and the cameraman had the camera on me, and Dave was out wandering around not far away, and we weren't even particularly prepared to be filming at that moment, but all the mechanisms started raising up, and at the same time I had said, oh gosh, my head hurts, and at the same time that was going on, everything we had going was going crazy, and the waves on it, when we come home and put it on the computer, went way up high, like 800 megahertz, and I was like, oh, well, it must have been a minor headache. It's gone already. And when I had said that, everything had gone down. And so when we got home, we reviewed everything we had. David was actually standing very close to what would have been a Sasquatch that we didn't know, and we didn't even know he was there. David has him on camera. Joe has him on film, and he must not have liked David's presence. And I was in line with what he would have been like, shooting this get out of my area type of sensation, and it was physically affecting me so much that we had to leave. We went home. I was done for the day. I took so much of it in that the constant headache and, oh, it was gone. Oh, I got it again. Nauseousness sent me right to the bed for the rest of the day. I was just like I had the flu. I was infrasounded so hard. And then while I was resting, the guy said, you're not going to believe what happened earlier. We know why you're not feeling well. When I woke up, they told me all this stuff, and look at all this, evidence we have of infrasound. And that was, it's monumental, and I can't wait till we put it all together and, let people view our work, because there is something to the energy, like you're saying. They're connected. They're connected to this earth in a way they can pull energy. And I've heard them discuss that, pull energy. And I've got pictures of where just a bolt of light will come right out of the ground, and they're just like you rip paper, they're stepping out or stepping in. And it's connected to the earth, just like you're saying. Whether they're using energy from the earth or they're cycling it with the earth, I'm not sure. That's, still stuff we're working on and still trying to chase those theories down. Because everything we do, it starts with a theory and a hypothesis, and then you got to, get the, catch the stuff on film and get it in a way recorded where people can understand it or believe what you're presenting them is really a hard task. That's really where we're at with this whole thing, is trying to go after the harder parts of it. Taking photographs and video of Sasquatch, dogmen, wolf creatures, yes, aliens, I've got it, UFOs, I've got it all. And it really has done no good at disclosure of any of it. Going after the more infinite stuff of what they're about, why they're here, and documenting their abilities is where we're at with it all now. It's like, the other stuff has become boring and mundane. Yes, we see the Sasquatch. Yes, we have pictures of them, comparisons, all of that. You could do that for so long, but it's just going to get old eventually, and that's where we got with it. And we're focused more on this whole energy thing that you've brought up. I've seen some, but not all. There's some researchers out there. There's people out there that I would call researchers. And then there's people out there I would call experiencers or hunters and different other titles. But everybody seems to be walking into the woods and calling themselves a researcher because they found a Sasquatch structure. I think that really needs to be brought down to level. You have real people out there that understand there's a science to this. And yes, they're 63% human, but they're 37% something unknown to this earth. That should take some level of caution. That should raise people's eyebrows. You shouldn't be running into this, because when you get your frequencies higher and higher by being around these things, you start seeing one thing after another after another. And I couldn't wrap my head around the dogman. Then what comes next? Aliens. And then what comes next? Wolf creatures. It's just one thing after another. And yet they're all connected. They're all interdimensionally working together. You see them communicating together. You'll get a picture of a UFO at the same time you get a picture of a Sasquatch running across the yard. I have that. There's just so many instances where they've proven that they are linked together, that it needs to be studied as a whole, and it needs real scientists on every level coming together to look at it, so that we can bring this whole, the energy that the earth is putting off of, and it's higher in this place, what's happening now at this place, and let's have the people that know the most about that individual thing and that individual thing all come together. And, stop running a rat race that's not going anywhere, because that's where we're at now with research. People are running a rat race and they're not coming anywhere near where we need to be to understand this thing as a whole.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions, and I know you've already touched a lot on them, and I know which direction you're going into, just for the sake of our listeners, okay? Now, I know many Bigfoot researchers. I know researchers who have had their own sightings. They've been searching for 20 years in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and most of the Bigfoot researchers I encounter believe that Bigfoot is just an undiscovered North American great ape or hominid. Obviously, I don't think you believe that. They also, in my opinion, seem to exhibit a lot of abilities that almost appear paranormal. Yet, I think that, and again, you can correct me and let me know what your thoughts are. I think that paranormal is in reality our lack of understanding of the nature of reality and what energies can do. We're only programmed to really know and understand so much, and yet there's so much about our reality around us that we're not aware of. So is it safe to say that these intelligent beings are not primates, but something else, and that they do have the ability to appear, disappear, or to transfer among dimensions?
I'm really glad you brought that up because, well, for one, your first statement there about paranormal, for me, paranormal is the normal. I think there's so much more to our reality that people don't realize, or they just don't resonate with, or they're not vibrating at that frequency to even understand it. They don't pick it up. And yet there's hundreds and thousands of people that do. Now, when you talk about this, I'll say the word cloaking, okay? I don't believe that they're cloaking. I don't believe that whatsoever. What I believe is this is based on energy. Now, if we compare them to humans, we have a 12-strand DNA. They're running at 24, somewhere up there high. When we get nervous and we perspire and we have our blood pressure go up and we breathe heavier and our heart rate's pounding, we have reactions. We sweat, we shake, we, have different things. People kind of move around a lot more, they have their thing. Now, just per se, okay, so these things, what if they're doing the same thing and they realized that when they were doing it, oh, those little naked humans couldn't see me when I was doing this or I was behaving that way. Oh, so now we've got onto that. Let's use it. I think that they have a faster particle spin at that point, because when we have a faster particle spin, when all that elevates for us, that's because our particles are generating more energy. We are energy beings. We are light beings, 98% water. If they're that much human...
When you said this yesterday, Shel, this really, really made me understand my experience. And I tried to explain it to Mark earlier today, but you're explaining it a lot better.
Well, I hope so, because there's so many cloaking, invisibility, magic, all those are words out of the human language. And the humans, right, I'm sorry, do not have that great of eyesight. Our dogs and our cats have way better eyesight. This is an example of what I'm trying to say. The other day, my dog was sitting on the couch next to me, staring out the window, and she just growling. And I'm like, what is your problem? And so I look out the window, and I don't see a thing. And it dawned on me, you know what? Even though it's winter and I'm taking a break, go grab a digital camera. So I did. And I zoom out. There's a Sasquatch looking over the top of the garage down at the dog, and that's what she's growling at. So I take the picture of it. And then I wait, and he stayed there too long. So the sun was actually moving. And then the next day, exactly at the right time, I took the picture and got the comparison. He's not there, and got the dog up there on the couch and trying to get her attention over there. And she just wouldn't pay attention to nothing. So, okay, he's not there. What she was seeing yesterday and what she was reacting to and what showed up in the camera was definitely there. And so our eyes cannot see what my dog could see. And so, it's just, we're coming up with these words of cloaking, people seeing shimmer, people seeing something that looks like a heat wave, something that looks like water. I've heard it all, and people describe the invisible.
That's similar to my experiences, and I only wish that I'd had a camera now, because even though my eyes couldn't see, the camera would have done like you said.
Yeah, and sometimes we've used the camera or even a cell phone in safety situations, because I have had these dogmen around my house, and they usually show up in the fall and around in the winter and the spring, and then they're gone. I think they go north where it's cooler, but we would take our dogs out, and Dave will stand there with a really bright flashlight and just watch the dogs, and I will stand there with technology and just keep scoping our area out. And I see one and I'm going, okay, let's go. And I start taking flash photos, blinding light to keep it away. And it'll show up right to your face when you're looking through the camera. But behind the camera, you're seeing nothing. And it's such a weird thing to wrap your head around. I didn't believe when people first started coming to me and saying, oh, they cloak and, oh, they do these invisible magical things and everything. I was thinking these people are nuts. And boy, did I have some apologies to give when I started realizing that there was something to it. And for me, it happened the very first experience where I would say that it was a cloaking type situation. I was sitting around a campfire with a friend, and it was a really boring night. He was about to fall asleep, and this Sasquatch must have been standing there just, observing us or something. And I was looking straight ahead, and I didn't see anything. And all of a sudden, it was just like somebody plugged something in, and now the plug may have been loose, and it just didn't stay. It was there, and then it blinked, and it was not there, and it blinked again, and it was there, and then it was just gone. And I raised my hand up in the air and hit my partner's leg so hard. He complained for 2 days thinking that I broke his leg. And it scared me. It scared me so bad. It made me feel so vulnerable because that thing was huge. That thing's gigantic. He's only, 15, 20 feet away from us. And, here he is 12 feet tall and we can't see where he's at. It just totally mind freaked me for a while. And I really had to want to keep on this road. Do I want to continue research if that really is true and that they're capable of this? What else are they capable of? And are we safe? That was my first priority is, oh my God, are we safe? And how do you protect yourself against something like that? And to know that these other things are doing the same thing. I've gotten pictures of gray aliens doing this, and we've got a picture of a reptilian doing it with a gray alien beside it. We've got a picture of Dogman doing it, wolf creatures, Bigfoot. And the nice thing about it is sometimes we have video to also compare with the camera that took the picture. So you'll have two different cameras that have done it, and you have witnesses standing there and all of us seeing nothing. And you can't argue with that. You cannot argue with when you have people that are credible and you have people that don't believe in that and they're going, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It makes you go, okay, then this needs to be looked at. And we got to start thinking outside the box. If we're going to think outside the box, well, you might as well take the walls down too, because you cannot look at this whole thing here, claim to know all of it when it is so vast. And I know a lot, but I definitely don't know it all. And, I guide people, I teach people, I help people in the habituation situation where they're on their properties, like I've had to learn, and help them coexist and help them not have so much fear to just take the garbage out because they're going to walk into a shimmering man like you've seen, Irene. I'm sure that really give you a fright. And I'm sure that it took many, many days of you going back and letting your dogs out at night and you not thinking about that same event over and over. It can be very traumatizing.
I've got to admit, I did think about it for a few days. Like I said, the very first time it happened, I was quite proud of myself when I faced the first one, but it was a lot smaller. But 2 years later, when it happened again, and like we said yesterday, could this have been the smaller one now 2 years later, quite a lot bigger? When that happened again, I thought, oh, Christ, something's out there. There's definitely something out there. And like I said to Mark today, that noise I hear over in the woods up on the hill, always at a certain time of the year, and it is blood-curdling. And I can't figure out what it is. And I know native British animals, and I know the noises they make. I know what the fox's mating calls like, and one thing or another. This is beyond all that, beyond it. Just once a year, about the same time every year.
For me, there's a situation where I guess it's the same Sasquatch that goes through. I haven't heard him in the last couple years, but there for a while, every year around the end of September, he would come through and he would stand up on the highest point and he would let off this scream that started like a siren, and then it would go to, it sounded like a woman just being horrendously raped and murdered type sound, and then it'd go to this guttural, just rah, and I mean it was just a deep guttural sound, and it would just go on for so long. The lung capacity of whatever was doing it, I knew had to be just gigantic. So I kept chasing that down, trying to get the information of, is that your people doing that noise, you know? And I finally got answers as to why they were doing that and what that was. They will have what they call the traveler. The travelers will come through and they will put off a mating call in areas where there is a lot of Sasquatch, because they want to break up the breeding pool. They know that you cannot keep breeding. They're very intelligent. And so he would put off this call for any of the females that want to breed, because they will breed in the fall purposely so they have their babies in warmer weather. So I just wonder if that's not what you're hearing, one of those crazy mating calls.
Yeah. I would never have ever believed, although we do have Will-o-Woos in Scotland, wild man, I would never have believed that there was anything like that down here in the south where I was.
Irene, when is the last time you've heard that?
Last year. What
time of year was it?
It was autumn, late autumn. Autumn, yeah, right about autumn sometime.
That's about that time period.
September, October, something like that. But the point is, if I hadn't seen shimmering figures over that 2-year period in the garden that I did see, and when I explained them to, was it you, Mark, or somebody, I think it might have been you, and I described what they looked like with the long arms, like you could see the outline where the arms would have come down to practically the calf, like an ape. And the build of it, and I think it was you, Mark, turned around and said, that sounds like Bigfoot. I laughed. Bigfoot over here in the UK. Yeah, sure.
Especially in Wales.
Now, you told me, Shel. I'm beginning to think this is true. It must be. It must be. Whatever I saw, it was a moving, living something out.
Well, my experience has been that I've got students all across the globe. I mean, everywhere from Australia. Yeah. I've had New Zealand. I've had the Philippines. Hawaii, believe it or not, one of my students went on a trip to Hawaii, knew what to look for, and was shocked that she didn't even have to get outside of the suburban area to find signs of them, and then actually take some pictures of some eye shine in the evening. So there's been every continent. There's just a few that I have not heard anything from, but it seems like on every continent there's some very credible experiences that I have to go, oh, I want to go there. I want to go check this out. But I have to take it as an experience. A possible Sasquatch is what I lean towards. And everything that you've told me as far as the shimmering and the shape, and then, that mating call, I have to question if it's not Bigfoot that you have come in contact with.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Maybe Will-o-Woos. We call it Will-o-Woos over here in Scotland. Old man. So,
yes.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Okay, we don't call it Bigfoot.
If they could take portals and stuff, and hey, if they're in contact with those guys flying a little silver disc around in the sky and stuff, why not?
I live in the Grand Iris Valley in Wales, and it is like UFO highway down here.
I was hoping you would bring a point to that. That's why my point was, it's like, okay, if they're in contact with that. Now, I know somebody else that says there's this this alien called, I probably will not say it right, Qualitar, and they say that it looks like a Bigfoot. That, the accounts of people seeing them and him having like utility belts on and getting in and out of an UFO. There was a picture somewhere, I can't remember. I was at one of these big MUFON meetings, and they had a picture of this Bigfoot-like creature, looked like Chewbacca, getting into a UFO. And who had taken the photo was a hunter that was up in his hunting blind and seen it land in a field. He says it opened the door, it walked out, and it bent down, grabbed something, and went back in, and away it went. Now, I was like, wow, at the time, because at the time I really was not set on what I thought was Bigfoot here. I was still waiting for that visual. I had castings of the foot, I had hair and things like that, but I had not had the visual yet. But obviously there's different beings that we probably don't even know about.
There's so much about our world, our planet alone, that we really don't know enough about. We're at a time in our technology and our advancement and civilization that we think we're at the pinnacle of our civilization, and we're really not. We're still in the learning stages. Now,
we're babies.
Yeah, we are babies still learning, and well, that leads me to I want to ask a couple of direct questions of you with your experiences of these creatures. First of all, compared to humans, are they less intelligent, more intelligent, or it's just different?
It's just different, and I could tell you why. I could give you a couple of examples. I've seen them do things that make me go, do you not have any common sense? And then I've seen them do things, and I go, I couldn't have done that if I tried. Example, one time I had taken a voice recorder, and I had put it in a dog cage that I had on the back patio, and I did it in what I thought was a really sly way. I act like I was at sunset just cleaning up from the kids and, putting everything away. And I had that recorder in my hand and a tape to the bottom of my hand. And now there would have been nowhere close that they could have seen me. So they would have had to see me from a distance. But then I learned about this whole invisibility thing, and I had to question, were they standing right there the whole time? But I had it on my hand, and I just slapped it up there on the roof of that dog cage, and kept moving things around and went on in the house. A few hours later, the door got knocked on, and the back door, mind you, and it was late at night, and my mom looked at me, and I looked at her, and she's like, you better check that out. And so I went over there, and I opened the door, and here's my recorder laying on perfect center of the rug, and it's sitting there turned off, like, don't try and trick us, we know what you're doing. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is really strange, because that's really expensive, and they turned it off and everything. We tried everything, and they would figure it out. But then, after I did that with the dog kennel the one time, then we kind of moved the dog kennel. We only get it once we were, taking the dog somewhere, and we had it up against the concrete. And my mom stuck a couple of, we were recycling, and she stuck a couple cardboard boxes in front of that cage that was pushed up against the concrete. And I got up one morning to find that the door was completely bent down, and it's steel. It's for a larger dog. It's bent down, and like they put their hand in there feeling for it to make sure the recorder wasn't there, when all they had to do is just move it back. Why did they have to bend the door down because it was latched shut? They couldn't just push it back and stick their arm in there. So you'll go, what were they thinking? Another example, I had taken chalk, and on the concrete, I had made the symbol of I do not fear death in Nordic Ruin, because it's a theory that they're using the Ruin language as all these glyphs on the ground. So I did the 3 triangles, and the 3 triangles have an actual rectangle ends up in the middle of it. And I have a picture of this too if you guys want to see later. So I left the chalk there. I did this late at night, like about 10 o'clock at night. Now there's no children around anywhere where I live. And there definitely wouldn't be any people out there that late at night, because even our neighbors had gotten to where they feared going outside at night. The very first thing in the morning is I go out there to see what, transpired. Did they do anything with the chalk? Well, they did. The way they answered, it would have taken me probably 30 sheets and a bunch of tries. And here they just did it. Bam, done. They made 3 X's that crossed over each other, just like my triangles did. And what was in the middle? A rectangle. Just like the triangles had left a rectangle in the middle. They did it with X's. One try. Just slash, 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 and done. And I'm going, God, they're so intelligent sometimes, but other times you think you're dealing with an idiot savant. You know, it just depends on which one you're dealing with, too, because, you know, you get different ages. And I've noticed that the youth, the juveniles can be so clumsy and do such klutzy, funny things, whether you're talking the wolf creatures or the Sasquatch. But, you know, the adults seem to be more reserved and wise. You know, they will think up things or do things for you, just boom, out of the kindness of their heart, should you say. An example, I'm terrified of snakes. You guys may think that's funny. You may think it's funny because I play with these big hairy guys, but yet I'm terrified of snakes. Well,
yeah, so really then, Shel, they're no different to anything in the animal world, are they? You know, the juveniles,
well,
like puppies, you know? You've got puppies.
Yeah, they do funny things.
They do crazy things, yeah, but as they get older, they get more reserved.
Well, plus, in terms of intelligence, when you talk about human beings and these Bigfoot creatures, sometimes they seem smart, other times they seem stupid. All you have to do is go to YouTube and watch all the videos of stupid human beings doing some really insanely stupid things.
Yes.
And you'll know that, you know, I think that's just part of the nature.
They're not that much different.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not that much different. But they would do, like, one thing I didn't even think of when I first moved into this house 2 years ago. There's 2 pipes because we live close to the swamp, which is a highly active place. You know, I would have chose my house. Well, now I move closer to them instead of trying to get away from them. But we have these 2 pipes that come out that constantly is like a water pump that keeps water from going into the basement. And I don't like snakes. And so we kept finding these dead snakes all along the edges of the property. And so Dave is like, well, their necks are broken. He would pick them up and look at them like kind of dangling. He goes, I really think they know you don't like snakes, Shel, and they're killing the snakes before they come on the property. And I'm like, well, that's nice. How very thoughtful of them. That's, you know, that's lovely. Then one of them had brought a piece of a screen, like, you know, you use on your screen windows, and laid it up on and kind of wrapped it around that pipe and laid it on top of it, kind of like giving us the message, you should cover these pipes so we have, you know, don't have to keep killing snakes. And they laid the dead snake by it. So we would get the idea to cover those up and it won't go in your basement and then we won't worry about you, you know. It was kind of like a really nice thing that I didn't even think of, that, oh my gosh, those snakes could go looking for warmth in the fall and get, because that's when they were doing it, was in the fall. And they could go up in those pipes and get into the basement and I would probably just fall out of myself. So they'll do things like that are very thoughtful and, you know, very logical, that I didn't even give it a second thought. So they're highly intelligent. It's just, I think that sometimes you're dealing with a juvenile, sometimes you're dealing with, you know, an old wise one. It just depends. They're all individuals just like us. And when I first got to interact with the clan as a whole, my very first question when I realized that I could communicate with them, the first thing I thought was out of my mouth, but I guess was coming out of my head to them was, what do you call yourselves? And their answer was, the people. We're a people too. And I've always asked them, is there anything I could do for you? You know, especially before winter or something. And they'd say, just teach your people we're people. That's all they've ever asked of me. That's all they ever wanted from me, is just to teach your people we're people too. And there is 4 languages, you know. I've learned that they have 4 different languages, and they've showed such humanity sometimes that our people don't even come close to. And I think I have learned so much from them as far as just wisdom and patience and real, just a humbleness that comes across that I don't think I would ever come to without meeting their people and watching their people interact with not just us, but the other beings, like I said, the wolf creatures and, other beings. They just seem to have their open heartness is very big once you're past that rough exterior of you don't like us, you're afraid of the way we look, all those things that they keep themselves hid from us for. They just don't like the reactions that we have to them. And they've made that clear on many, many times, different ones that I've been introduced to. They'll hide their face behind a tree and do the whole peeking around thing. And that's why we called our team, tree peekers. That's where we got that. They're peeking. But they really are no different than we are. If you break it down, their aunts, their uncles, their moms, their dads, grandmas, grandpas, nieces, nephews, they're just like we are. They've got their family units, they've got their community clan unit, which is not like, you think of a clan and you think of probably like a bunch of people living together, and it's not like that. They spread out. Like, they'll have a clump here that's a family here, and then 4 or 5 miles away you have another clump of family, but they belong to the same clan.
Being Scottish, I'm sure Irene can relate to that.
Maybe not.
The Scottish clans.
Are we old enough to relate?
well,
yeah, we're old enough. We're old enough. Don't worry about that.
Shel,
it's all about respect. You respect them, they'll respect you. Yes.
Yes, that's exactly how it is. With and that's with everything.
You broke up a little bit there, Irene.
That's
Sorry?
I've met a few that are not. They don't like humans, and they're nasty. They're just like us. You give what you get, in most cases, and you still have to approach them all like strangers.
Actually, I'll respect their space, and they can respect mine.
Exactly, and that's exactly how they'll give it to you. Also, you respect them, they respect you. That's what I teach, is respect, and all across the board.
What it all comes down to at the end of the day, yeah.
Now, Shel, you said that you have students working with your group all over the place?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Me being here in Colorado, I moved here a few months ago. I know that there are a couple of areas around here where there have been Bigfoot sightings. And it's something, when this weather warms up, I'm interested in looking into. So my question...
I have a student close to Denver.
I'm in Colorado Springs, so I'm an hour south of Denver.
No, I have a student out there.
Okay. Well, so for somebody like me who's wanting to learn and go out and research, what is the best approach if I go into an area and start coming into it? Obviously, you don't want to go in doing the stupid calls and leaving gifts or doing everything that's going to disrupt an area. But, I would assume that it would be more like the Jane Goodall approach, where if you quietly come into an area and just let your presence be known passively and let that...
You already said it. You said my key, and my students will tell you they hear it over and over. Just be.
Mm-hmm.
You said the words in your sentence right there. Just be. Now I have a curriculum.
Okay,
and
go ahead.
I teach everything from all their eye colors that they change. It's all a communication, and those colors and the way they go about it. The markings, the structures, there's a mapping system to that. There's a way to get on the Bigfoot highway and get off that people highway.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways to find them and easily find them. And it's tried and true all around the world. And then I go into different segments where you learn how to get past the adrenalized part where they're scaring you so bad you just want to run. But you got to know the difference between fight or flight, and when should you take it? When should you not take it? And then there's the spiritual side of things, where you're learning as much about yourself as you are them, and they're learning you and you're learning them. And this is a process, and it takes about 1.5 to 2 years to get all the way through the curriculum. But as a beginner, somebody just wanting to go out there and just be in their vicinity, you said it, just be. Go out there, walk your dog, hike, take a friend, enjoy nature. Because I always say this, and yet you've probably heard me say this before. You cannot go finding Bigfoot. It won't happen. You go out there and you find yourself, and Bigfoot will find you. If it's meant to be and it's part of your journey, then he will find you and you will have a path. But if it's not meant to be, then it just won't, and you'll have a good time no matter what.
Do you feel that they are able to, and I'm not exactly talking psychic stuff, but if that's it, then that's it, but are they able to interpret intent, emotions, feelings by reading those energies from somebody? Like if you were to go, or if I were to go out there into certain locations, sitting peaceful, quiet, but if I'm putting out those feelings of friendship, love, and just sitting there quietly and just emanating that out, do you think that would be more attractive, or do they not care?
Well, you know what? You need to look at this more of, how would you be if you're sitting in the park and the park bench next to you, a guy comes up there, he's got his hands in his pockets, and he looks tense and stiff, and he comes up there and he puts his foot up on the park bench, and he's kind of just the scowl on his face and just looking around. You kind of go on high alert, kind of keep more notice of him. His body language tells you everything. Now, if you have a man that comes up there, sits down, and he's just kind of relaxed, he's got a book with him, and his body language is very open, you don't think twice about it. I mean, you kind of leave him to do his thing. It's no different when we go into their area and we're going about our thing, which would be enjoying nature, looking for wild mushrooms or flowers of some kind or whatever, or just enjoying being with the person you're with, rather than the person out there looking like you've got a telescope in your hand and you have a frown on your face and you're looking at every little thing and every little break, and that's the kind of person that's going to make them nervous, because they feel hunted. What's he up to? What's he doing? He's got a microscope on us. And then you've got this other person that's just, there with a friend. Yeah, they've got cameras in their hand, but they're having fun. They're taking pictures of each other and whatnot. And, I never seem to really give them the thought. I always give them the thought of, we're just here to enjoy this space, and thank you for allowing us. And if I feel like the vibe is bad, I go. I don't stay. They can give a vibe off just like we can give a vibe off. And if they get that vibe that you're there hunting after them, you're never going to see them. You're never going to experience them. They pick that vibe up just like we would if the guy next to you at the park bench had a negative vibe or a real intense vibe, opposed to somebody that's real relaxed. So that's just my technique, and it works well for me, obviously.
The other thing a lot of Bigfoot hunters use, and I sometimes think it's a waste of time, but trail cameras. Do you ever have any?
I have to laugh about that.
Yeah, because they seem to sniff those out no matter how well they're disguised, no matter how far up a tree or whatever.
See it.
Yeah,
I've taken it out in the field, and I played with it. I actually made one mad at us one night because it really flashed him bright, and his eyes went red immediately. But no, they can see the infrared, and so they'll stay away from that. They fear everything with light or intensity of light, and I think it's because their eyes are so extremely sensitive, because they do lay mention to that about their eyes. And in the summertime, when the sun is really bright or it's going down, I notice that they rock. Whenever the sun's and they've got to look in that direction, they're rocking and moving. And some people said, oh, they're getting nervous. Oh, you better watch out. And no, it's not that at all. It's the sun. And one time I was close enough to one that I was only a few feet away. The sun was setting, and it was right on his eyes, and I could see his eye had a bunch of like hexagon shapes in it. And I'm thinking, it kind of reminded me of somebody that gets cataracts, and you just see that one, or your dog where that catches the light, and you just see this like one lens. Well, it was like a bunch of them full of hexagons in his eye that I seen. And I'm thinking, oh, I bet that's why they rock back and forth when it's so bright, because they're trying to focus. It's not about them being nervous. It's about focus. And they see things like when we were working on the documentary, we did this. We tested him. There was one in the tree, and he had his eyes shine. Well, they have watchers that go up in the tree in certain areas, and I knew where to find them. Anyway, you would take the camera and just kind of go in a circle, and every time the line we couldn't see, but it's giving off a beam that he can see, it would get towards him. He would close his eyes. And then we keep going. And then when we'd sweep it back around, his eyes would be open. And as soon as it'd line up with him, his eyes would close. And so that beam maybe hurt their eyes. Not sure, but he sure did seem to notice. And he closed his eyes every time it came close, pointing directly at him. So they're obviously seeing that beam of light.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about, what Bigfoots are in terms of their culture and how to interact with them. But I know that you had gotten to the point we're talking about where you and your son at your home were starting to have all these experiences with these things. I mean, when you first made contact with them, what exactly happened in that moment? I mean, how did that come about?
My son had been up. We weren't even out that night. And it's like most things, you won't pick and choose with Sasquatch. They will pick and choose moments. Well, he was playing games and I wasn't feeling well, so we weren't out that night, and I'd gone to bed. And the next thing I know, my son like flies in my room. He's like, "Come on, Mom, you got to get up. You got to come out. You got to come out. They're out here. They're out here." And I'm like, yeah. I'm figuring they're just whistling and throwing pebbles and doing the norm. And he's like, "No, Mom, they're showing themselves. Come out here. Come out here." And I'm like, "What?" So I jump up and I go after him, and I walk around into the living room, and I see the door is just wide open. And I step out, and my son is standing there in the landscaping in front of the door, and my daughter is right behind him because she's heard all this commotion, and his girlfriend, my son's girlfriend, is standing to his right, and then I just walked up beside him, and straight across the road from my mom's is this empty lot in a schoolyard, and there's ambient light coming from that school, and they were just standing there, and their eyes were kind of glowing, and you could see them. The father, I guess, is giant, and it's got a female, and she's holding a baby, and there was 2 juveniles next to him that were about the same height, a little bit shorter than the female, and they were just showing themselves, just standing there. And so we're just standing there looking at them, and they're just standing there looking at us. And I stopped for a moment and realized that we're staring. And it seemed like 10 minutes had gone by, but it was really only like about 3 or 4. And I said to my son, I go, "This is so rude, really. I mean, they've showed us their family, and here we are showing them ours." I said, "Now we should just stop, and we should just go into the house." And he says, you're right, we should." And so we, just said, "Thank you." And I put my hand up as to say, kind of like how like the Indians would, I guess. I just kind of put my hand up in like a thank you. And the male put his hand up also. And so we all turned to go in, and I was the last one. And I stopped and I turned back behind me to see if they were walking away, and they were just gone.
That's very interesting.
And that's when I really started getting it, that this is a people, it really started sinking in.
The connection you have with Bigfoot, have you found the same connection with Dogman, or is it a bit more dicey?
A lot more dicey. Yeah. That's something I don't want any part of. I've had bad luck with it. I have reason to believe it's alien orientated, and I've got a picture of a dead one. I have a picture of one that fought with another one and was kind of a bloody mess, and therefore I was able to get these 2 photos that are probably the only 2 actual dog man photos that I have. The other canine photos I have are all of the wolf creatures. These dog men thing, they're, in my opinion, biomechanical engineered. They're gigantic. They dwarf these wolf creatures. The heads on these things are enormous. I have pictures of live ones or healthy ones, and they're in different breeds. Now, you've got some of these armchair researchers out there, and they're probably going to get really mad and cuss me out over this one. I'm going to say...
armchair researchers.
Yeah, they're going to be mad at me because they're calling you type 1, type 2, type 3. And you know what? I really want to just say, you know what? Get yourself out there and get the photos, get the experience, and then come back and tell me about types. Now, I don't think there's any types. A dog man is a dog man. Okay, It's got bent legs. The thing's gigantic. It'll tear anything up, anything in its way, without a conscience. It has these alien usually on their shoulders, which I've got pictures of, or they usually have an alien, gray alien around them. And the strange thing about these things, I would say they're different breeds. Just like there's 7 different races of Sasquatch, there's different breeds of these dogmen they put together. Now, I have pictures of a husky-looking one. It looks like a husky dog. I have one that looks like a hyena. I have witnesses that have come to me and told me about these things, and then I get the pictures of them, so I believe their stories. I have ones that look like Dobermans, ones that look like German Shepherds, other ones that look like something I don't even know what it looks like. It's just, I look at it and go, that's scary. I don't know what to think of that. It's nothing I've ever seen on this earth.
If I ever came across a dog man, I would hope I come across a Chihuahua one. That way it's so small I can punt it to get it out of my way, you know.
I just hope it doesn't have the Chihuahua attitude.
Oh yeah, little ankle biter. Get out of here.
Yes, there's many different ones. I had the one that looks like a lion face, a picture of that. I have the bear. Like I said, I have one of like all these different types. But I think a dog man is a dog man. And then you got the wolf creature that's walking on legs that look like a human, and they seem to do things that act like human, and they are hanging out with Sasquatch, and their whole mannerisms are a strange human quality, and it's unnerving, but I've had no problem with them. They're around the yard. They haven't messed with us in any negative way. But those dogmen, yes, they will mess with you. They will tear up your animals, take them off, whatever. They are a negative entity that I just want no part of it.
Do you have close neighbors where you live?
I do. I'm on the last street on the east side of the village I live in, and my mom is on a dead-end street on the west side. Mm-hmm. And we're surrounded by waterways and trees that, line up to this and that and connect to this and that. And like I said, I've got a swamp that's like 6 blocks down from me. So it's very rural where I live. The nearest big town is 12 miles away.
Okay. You were going to say something, Irene? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was. How do these armchair investigators differentiate the different types, type 1, type 2, type 3?
Well, they're listening to people's stories and, well, you've seen one that looks like that. Well, you've seen this that looks like that. Well, I want to touch on that too, because if these people are alive to tell their stories, okay, 9 chances out of 10, they probably seen a dog man from a distance, or they seen a wolf creature that dropped all fours and ran off and left them alone. And one thing that really has bothered me ever since I got into research at a really hardcore level is your phone ringing at 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody going, oh, this is so-and-so, and I got your number from so-and-so that knew so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And I was attacked by a Sasquatch tonight. And I'm like, and you're alive to tell me about it? I'll talk to you tomorrow. You didn't get attacked. You had an encounter. Okay, if these things are going to attack you, then you're not going to be here any longer, okay? Sasquatch or otherwise. These things are massive in size. It's something to hear about it. It's another thing to see it. And that's what's annoying about these armchair researchers that think they know something because they've heard accounts. They need to get out there and experience it themselves and then come back with their theories. But when they come back with their theories, they need to come back with some educated proof here. They need to come back with some, a hypothesis that they used to get that theory, and then they need to show us some of the proofs before they start giving conclusions. Because as long as I've been doing this, I haven't come up with any conclusions. Well, I will tell you a lot of encounters and a lot of experience, but I won't give you conclusions because none of us really know.
No, we don't. And that's a problem with most of these armchair researchers. They're armchair researchers for a reason. They're either too fat and lazy to get off their butts and get out and do real research, and they much rather just, take
Say it like it is, Mark.
Emails.
Like
of course I am. I'm saying it like it is, and we know who I'm talking about. Takes everybody else's...
I'm going to give you a knuckle tap. A knuckle tap. There it was. It was virtual.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I can't berate any one person and point any one person out, but there are a lot of them.
There's too many, and that's the whole point. Is any of these research, and and as a paranormal researcher, UFO researcher, all sorts of things that we've investigated, anybody who comes out and say they're an expert, or if they say that, oh yeah, we know what's going on here. Oh, no, you don't. Even ghost hunters irritate the hell out of me when they go into a location. They go, yes, it's this spirit. It's Lizzie, and she died because of a broken heart, and we know she's still haunting these halls. How the hell do you know that? You don't. You've got some EVPs, fine. You've got some activity, knocks on the walls, whatever, but you can't sit near and tell me not only who it is, but what their motivation is. Going out and looking for these creatures that we can't... It's hard for normal people to go out and study in their own habitat because it's the other way around. They study you. And, I mentioned Jane.
Absolutely.
I mentioned Jane Goodall earlier in the program, and that's really the way it has to be. Not like these killing Bigfoot or mountain monster where you got these yeehaw hicks running through the woods screaming and hooping and hollering and we're going to go get that son of a bitch. I still, that shows my guilty pleasure. I love it just because it's so damn entertaining. But
I know, right? That's the funniest stuff. But at the same time, it's kind of sick because it teaches people to think that that's okay.
Right. And that is the problem with it.
And I've seen that in action. I'll be out actually researching, and here comes a 4-wheel drive truck sliding in, a bunch of young guys getting out with big headlamps on and everything. And, all of us just kind of go, okay, well, that's kind of the buzzkill for the night. We're done. Yeah. And, we leave because they just ruined it.
Well, plus you want to get out of there before one of those idiots shoot you. Think, oh, there's something moving over there.
That's a whole nother problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. They shoot at anything that wiggles out there.
That's the problem. You're dealing with these types of very curious but cautious.
Take guns.
Pardon?
I don't take guns. I'm not armed in the field at all.
The only thing that scares me more than anything else out there is running into other people. Because they're the ones you got to be afraid of sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're in an area that has a high bear or wildcat population, maybe some pepper spray or something. But, in terms of these Bigfoot creatures, you know what? If one's going to get you, they're going to get you. That's it.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't get away. If you ever see them move, you realize what you're doing is risking your life if you're going to go into an area and not know the area. I don't go to any area at night unless I've been there a couple times through the daytime and gotten a real feel for the area and look at some of the markings and stuff, because the markings and the structures and stuff they put up will tell you whether you're welcome or not, and where you should be and where you shouldn't be. And, you know, nothing out there is going to save you from one of them if they turned on to you. And it's the same with the Dogman. You can buy yourself some time with, you know, an air horn, something to startle them, and, you know, get out of there. But if there's any signs of Dogman and stuff like that, I just avoid that area. But I always go into every new area very cautiously, looking for every signs of everything that is there, bear and otherwise, cats, big cats, you know, all that. All of that stuff is avoidable, and you can get out of those situations without having weapons. You can do that. It's just, how are you going to walk on this earth, and what kind of energy and vibration are you going to give out? And you can really have everything talking back to you, not verbally, but intensity wise, and you could feel everything and raise your elevation of frequency and your vibrational rate so that you are in tune with the earth and its surroundings and everything that's there. And, you know, there's times where I will walk into an area and I'll just totally look back at whoever I'm with and I'm going, we're going, that's it, I'm done. And they're like, well, we haven't even been here 3 minutes. I'm like, it's long enough, we're going. And, you know, so I am just really, really, really sensitive to everything when I'm in the field. And I just totally focus on that. You know, if there's something that's given a vibe off that it feels like I'm being intently watched, I don't even want to mess with it, whatever it is. I get out of there.
Now, you've seen and you've had encounters with everything from Bigfoot, dogmen, dog creatures, and you've mentioned gray aliens a few times. Have you had any interactions with these things, or I mean, what has been your encounters like with those types of beings?
You know, I have not talked about that with anybody. Yes, it's been very unfortunate. It's been horrible. It started 3 years ago for David and I, at the same time that I started noticing these dogmen and taking pictures of them from a distance, just using high powerful lenses and stuff like that, and seeing that these alien things were on their shoulders. The amount of UFO activity in this area was off the hook. I was taking pictures of the UFOs. The next thing you know, we had visitors, and they are not friendly visitors. And I have many pictures of my body just beat to a pulp, just, you know, bloody, bruised up mess from them. And
are you talking about
horrendous?
Are you talking about, like, if you've waken up in the morning and found this, or do you have conscious encounters that you remember?
Both. Some I don't, and many times David and I both remember everything. And my daughter won't even stay at my house. It's a very painful, touchy subject for me at this point, because my daughter will come during the day, but she will be gone before it's dark, and she'll stay with my mom or whatever. But she stopped coming here when my daughter realized what we were telling her, what we were saying was true. This happenings of these things coming. It only took one time for my daughter to get scared out of her mind, and she said no more. She won't come to my house. It's been almost a year, and I bought this house for her to live in this area, and it's only been 2 years we've been here.
Have you worked with? I'm sorry, I know there's a slight delay here. Have you worked with or tried to look further into this type of phenomenon as a way to try to prevent it from happening and stopping it? And I have a reason for asking that, but let me ask you.
I have, and I realized they only made it worse. I don't want to give up what's working for me right now, because I don't want to tip anything off or tip the scales. We're just doing the best we can right now.
Okay.
And I know that prayer and faith is a big part of it. And I don't know if these things are demonic or if they're interstellar, if they're interdimensional. I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're government involved. I just know they're the worst nightmare. And this is the first time I've ever spoke about it on the radio. And I've actually said to my close friends and stuff, if I had known that when I started into research so hard with the Bigfoot, that it was going to lead me into all these other entities, if you give me the chance, I would go back and I would still keep hiding from it. I would just ignore the sounds outside. I would not get involved with none of it.
So you think it's part and parcel of what comes along with doing the research with Bigfoot then?
I think it's doing the research and doing it at the level where people know about you, and maybe the government not wanting you to give the knowledge. That's what I think.
Have you? I've interviewed a lot of people who have been experiencers, abductees. In fact, I mentioned earlier in the program about yesterday going to watching a talk, and one woman who's an abductee and talking about this other case that I know of where somebody's having also negative interactions with these types of beings. And one of the things she talked about is making sure that you don't put out inviting them in any way, shape, or form, and putting out that intent that they're not welcome.
Oh God, no.
And I don't know if that's something you've tried just by simply saying anything. You have a relation. You have
so
tried
much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I have tried so much, and like I said, I think the best thing is to stay spiritual, keep faith. If they make you lose that edge, then it seems like they got one up on you, and you're more vulnerable. We actually, in my house, sleep in shifts. Have relocated the bedroom so it's right next to the living room, so that if David's resting, I can be watch on him and make sure that, because they seem to only come if you both are asleep, or when you're the least, when you're vulnerable, when you're least likely to have a way out, or a counterattack to them. So we just sleep in shifts like that, and we pray a lot. If things start feeling weird, or we start hearing or seeing some of the signs, like you'll start smelling what smells like a burnt match in the house, like
sulfur.
If somebody blew it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get the other, that's when we'll wake the other one up. If it's Dave, I'll wake him up and I'll go, hey, it's time to get awake. We need to be observant, need to be together. We need to pray. We need to, keep our eyes open and not be snuck up on from behind. And that's literally how we're living here. And I haven't told anybody that. This is the first I've come out with this, and I didn't plan on it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, because if there's one thing, when I hear a story like this, I go into protective mode. So,
it's terrifying. It's like the worst nightmare coming true. And
mm-hmm.
It's just the worst thing that I've ever been through in my entire life.
There's a gentleman.
Yeah, have you actually seen them with your own eyes?
Yes, and I could show it. Like I said, I've taken pictures. We have taken pictures where we'll be in our backyard, and they're right there in the tree line looking at us. And David will be so bold because he's just so angry as a big tough guy. Dave is 6'3" and he's almost 300 pounds. He's a tough man, and for him to be made to be vulnerable, it's like a major hit on his masculinity. And so he'll grab his camera and he'll just take pictures, and he'll shout at him and everything else. And I go, don't, David, don't do this. Don't, don't give him energy. You give him negative energy. Don't do that. And for a while, it was hard to get him to get on that mode of thinking, to just ignore him. Just, okay.
Yeah. You said that you think it may be the government.
I don't.
Do you think the government?
I don't. I don't know
what
what
you
else
mean by the government. It's obviously not human beings. It's the government sending something.
It's a theory. I don't know why they come down on me like this. It's just a theory, because, why all of a sudden? Why are these things bothering me when all I was doing is just researching Bigfoot and hanging out with that, and I was good with just that. I don't want the other things. I didn't want to learn about them, but they're on my plate. So if they're
they're there, I better know for my own safety. So that was my approach. Maybe you're getting too close to knowing something that they don't want you to know.
You know what? I don't go into the areas where these other things are. And I've gotten to where I just stay home. Like for the last 10 months, I have kept it home-based, not even going into the field, just trying to get it to stop. Just, okay, whatever it is that you don't like me doing, I'm just being, right? Okay, I'm just being myself right here in my own little homeland. If they come up in my backyard or if they're in the tree line, fine. I'm taking the photo shot. I'm going to get it. I'm going to share it. I'm good. That's my turf. But, I don't know why they turned on to me like this and Dave. And it has to be, that's what I'm saying. We've pushed the wrong button somewhere.
I also...
Yeah.
I also
maybe, like I said, you're getting too close with your research with Bigfoot. There's something that they don't want known.
Or it's the fact that...
Timpering on the edge of it.
Or it's the fact that she's raised her own vibrations enough to be able to interact with these other beings, that it's attracted these other more negative beings. And again, even though they may look like gray aliens, and you've even seen what looks like UFOs, there's a very similar case with a gentleman down outside of Phoenix, John Edmonds. I don't know if you've heard of him. He owns a ranch called the Stardust Ranch, which is a horse rescue. So
I watched the whole documentary, Dave and I did, and we just kept looking at each other the whole time, because that's really just like a page out of my book.
And in his case, he bought the property with it already going on, and he found out about it later. And your case, I think it probably is the fact that whatever these things are, I don't know why, I just keep getting pulled to the fact that they're not from outer space, that they're more ultra-terrestrial, as one way to call them. That's a good term. That's why I've kind of struggled with really what kind of label I want to put on it all. It seems like interdimensional, but yet not. It's like it's here, it's our reality, and not everybody can see this reality, and sometimes only our digital stuff is seeing it. But they seem to work so well here. Is it not that there's just an alternative reality right next to us that we're just blending in with and we don't even realize it? I really don't know what term to put on it. I just know that I didn't ask for it, and I don't like it, and I don't want to research it, and I don't want any part of it, but yet I can't make it go away. Yeah. When the show is over, we'll talk with you more about that. I have some ideas, and maybe we can discuss that further. I know other people have had these kind of experiences as well. There may be some things to look into, so we'll talk more about that. Now, getting back more with your interactions with these Bigfoot creatures, are you still interacting with them around your property in the present day?
Absolutely, because they will protect me from the other things. Like, if the other things got into the house and I didn't know about it, the next thing I know, this just happened. Honestly, just happened. I didn't know one of those things because we moved the bedrooms around like I told you, and there was a bunch of commotion in my old bedroom, and the next thing I knew, there was one of the Bigfoot in my living room, and by then I got awake. And the other thing, it's like he chased it out. There was a bunch of commotion. Some things got knocked over. And then I seen the Bigfoot going out the door. And so then I asked the next morning to speak to the clan leader. I wanted to talk about what happened in my home the night before. And he said, well, it was one of my guards that protected you from. And they don't like them, the Greys. They don't like them. And they call them many different names that doesn't even make sense to me. And, they have their own language when it comes to that. But we call them the Greys, and I don't know why, because they're not gray. They're more like white. And I don't know who come up with the term Greys, but anyway, these things are more white. I've seen them in different sizes. I've had a couple of different encounters with different ones. some ones that were really tall and thin. And now they were a little more gray than the white, I guess, but they were the meanest. They were absolutely horrible. And they had these little tiny ones with them. And those little tiny ones would literally bite you. They were horrible. And so I'm wondering, okay, at that point, it just started. And I was wondering, what are these things? Are they demons? What is after me or whatever? It's very terrifying. It's the worst, like I said, the very worst nightmare you could ever think up or dream up, and it coming to reality.
Have any of those
it's just scary
types of beings ever communicated with you?
The ones that were tall and the very first time, it telepathically spoke, and it was in my face, and it was telling me, you don't talk to the bigs no more. You don't talk to the bigs no more. And so it was threatening me about the Bigfoot. And so...
Really?
That's the only time that they ever did. And the rest of the time, it's probably because I still have communication with the Bigfoot. Now I'm very careful about that. And even the Bigfoot are careful about the communication and the interactions with me. They seem to know when those other things are around, when I don't. And it'll seem like I'm being ignored, and I just know that, okay, they're ignoring me like I don't even exist. That's a good thing, because those other things must be around, and I'll get myself in the house. And I'll tell David, I was out and, they were ignoring me or whatever, and I experienced the feelings that I was being watched. And so he'll say, well, then we're going to have to be extra careful, tonight or whatever. And within a few nights, sure enough, we'll have a problem. So it's an ongoing thing. And the Bigfoot seem to work with me on it. They seem to try and watch out for us.
This is such a fascinating and horrific story, and what you're going through and what you're experiencing. And does it seem like these negative encounters, have you figured out any pattern to them in terms of frequency? Do they happen more at other times of the year than others?
Yeah, it seems like it happens more in the colder months more. And then too, it seems like you just get comfortable, like, okay, it's over. They haven't bothered us in a long time. And you just get comfortable and relaxed. And like, Dave and I will go to bed at the same time, or we'll both start feeling really sleepy in the evening. Early in the evening, we'll both just go, okay, let's just, go to bed early. And then boom, that's when it happens to you. And, it's just so frustrating, because you get to that point where you think you got it beat, and then you don't.
What I was going to say was, when they attack, do they attack you both together, or do you get attacked at one time and maybe David another time?
Yes.
Or is it always
it's never
the two of you?
It's never the same. It's never the same. There like example, one middle of the night. It's typical for Dave and I to go to bed around 8:30 or 11:30 midnight, something like that. If we were back in the day when we were normal. And then 4:00 in the morning, we both just wide awake, and we both jump up and have to use the restroom really bad. It seems like when they put you back, you have to use the bathroom really bad. And
yeah.
So we both jumped up, and he was like running for the bathroom, and then he kind of yells some obscenities, and he's like, I'm going, what's wrong? And I'm, just getting awake, and he's saying his underwear are on inside outwards and backwards, and he can't get it is private to the place he wanted them, so he could go to the bathroom. And I'm going, but look at what I'm wearing. And and this was in the middle of summer, and I had just had a cotton tank, set that I was sleeping in. And all of a sudden I'm in a winter house coat that's zipped up and put on backwards, inside outward.
Was it yours?
And I'm going, David, yeah, I'm wearing this. And I'm going, David, look at this. Look what I'm wearing. And he's like, I'm worried about what happened. He goes, what happened to me? And, then there's something wrong with his privates. There's these 2 knots there that didn't used to be, and they must have put something inside him. And they remain. I mean, what do you do about it? What do you do about it? You know, they put something in his body.
These things that they've done to you.
I know this is silly, but they should really go to fashion school, because they do seem to get it wrong when it comes to clothes.
Well, yeah, my nightgown I found my nightgown that I had on, you know, my tank set. It was over on David's side of the bed in the corner of the room, and my winter house coat that had been put on me was in the closet. It would have been easily reached, because it was hanging where the coats hang, and so it would have been easily reached to grab that and just put that on me. But it's like, why not just put me back naked? Because, you know, I'm gonna know you've been messing with my body, because I can remember it. I can remember when you got in my room and took us one time, and
at least they were your own clothes. There have been people that have come woken up in the morning with somebody else's clothes on that they'd never even know where they come from.
I believe it. I totally believe that.
A real funny story.
A fella in a nightdress.
Well, no, a funny story is there's an abductee that we know who was abducted, and when he came back, he was wearing a woman's nightgown, like an old woman's nightgown. He's going, what the hell? And he started laughing, because he figured if he was abducted and along with other abductees, that they got the clothes mixed up. And what's funny about it is he was wearing a T-shirt that somebody else is now probably wearing, and you want to know what it said? I got abducted, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
And can you imagine somebody waking up with that? Waking up with that T-shirt after that. Oh,
there's this one time that David, you get to this level of paranoia when this starts happening to you, especially towards the beginning. And we like booby trapped the whole house, like pinned ourselves. We took these little hooks and we used fishing line, and we hooked them all over the house at different areas, and we put loud kitchen utensils attached to them, so that if they tripped on it, they'd make noise and we'd hear it. Well, there was this one, it'd been nights on end where we felt like they were coming, and there would be happenings outside that we would see UFO or, you know, something. We were just so paranoid back in those days. And so David, I told him, I said, I'm so tired. I just gotta sleep. And he says, me too. He says, come on. He says, I'll hold you. And he goes, I won't let him get at you. I won't. I promise. And so I remembered I was laying on my right side. We have a king size bed, and David slept all the way over on the left side of the bed, towards the window. And so I was more in the middle of the bed. I had my head up on his shoulder, and my right arm was tucked underneath me. My left arm was over his chest and hanging on to his shirt. And I'd taken my left leg, wrapped it over his left leg and underneath his right leg. And I was just hanging on like a spider monkey. I was so scared of them getting me, because they had been taking me and not him. And it was terrible things would happen. And so we had been in the field a couple weeks earlier than that, and I had fallen with one of my students. I was showing something, and I tripped, and I'd hurt my rotary cuff. And so if you move my shoulder just a little bit, I would feel it, and it hurt, and I wake up. Well, that's what happened. They had got in the room, and one of these grays was up on the bed, and it was pulling my arm backwards, and I felt the pain, and then recognized the cold hand on my wrist. And when I did, I just jerked and just dove on David, hanging on like dear life. And he opened his eyes just to see that thing. And I seen his shoulder flinch, and I ducked my head, and he said, what the? And he punched it, and its head hit the headboard. And we have an oak headboard, and that thing let off this scream in my ear like you wouldn't believe. And there was more of them at the end of the bed. They all took off. And when that thing ran out of the room, its hand hit the door, and we had white doors, and it left a handprint there. And the this person from MUFON that's down by St. Louis came up and took pictures and, fingerprinted everything off of that and the markings that had left. But yeah, David plummeted one of them, and they stayed away for a while, but then they came back.
Oh, good Lord.
So David actually punched this thing. Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, it was really intense moments.
Well,
well, we've come to the end of the show.
Yeah, we have, and what a show it's been. We have. Shel,
it really has been.
Yes, and I talked about things that I didn't think I would ever talk about, especially on air.
Steve, it's because we have this knack of making you comfy.
Yes, you do. It's been a wonderful show, and now I hope that I don't get punished for talking about it, and here they come,
No.
I know, I thought about that. I thought, oh my God, what if they come after her tonight now she's opened her mouth?
I'm afraid of that. Yeah. I am. I'm
Make
really
her feel better, Irene. Good job.
Sorry?
I said, make her feel better, why don't you? Good job.
It, though. She didn't have to say it. It was already in my head.
Yeah.
It really was. But,
Well, Shel, before...
if there's anybody...
Go ahead. Finish what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, if there's anybody out there where I can help them with Sasquatch as far as, wanting to learn how to get into the research of them, wanting to learn how to habituate with them if they're on your property and not fear them whatsoever, you could just go to Facebook and look me up at Shel Kaoke Dion. That's SHEL, and it's KAOKE DION. Our like pages, Whisper Walkers is here in the Midwest, Tree Peekers, we teach worldwide. You can contact us any of those ways, and I would be happy to guide you and help you. Know the differences between dogmen and wolf creatures, people. Don't be going after the wolf creatures. They're good guys. That's one message I want to say. Besides, don't forget the Sasquatch. They're a people. So respect them. They'll respect you.
Yes, very much.
That's right. Have respect. And Shel is going to write a book. She'll be writing a book. So everybody keep an eye out for the release of that book when she's finished it.
Yes, it's called Chasing Feathers. I'm halfway through the first. It'll be 4 volumes. I'm halfway through volume 1 right now and hoping to get it done.
Excellent. Well, Shel, again, thank you so much for coming on the program. This has really been a riveting conversation, and we'd definitely love to have you come back sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was nice to meet you both.
And everybody, thank you for listening to another edition of Paranormal UK Radio. Catch us every Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern and Greenwich Mean Time here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. We'll catch you next week. Everybody have a good one. Bye, Irene.
Yeah, night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye, Joe.